Welcome to Courageous Conversations with Dr. Clara Stephens. Today we are going to be looking into immigrants and the minorities. Demographic change in the United States have greatly influenced the need for a developed religious cultural competencies with the healthcare setting, within the healthcare setting and other organizations, workplaces. The proposed religious cultural competencies training is not limited to chaplains alone, but all employers, businesses, organizations, healthcare practitioners, and first responders to enhance care and practices. Tannenbaum wrote that as the land of immigrants, the 2000 American census shows that 11% of the population is foreign-born. Today, the Census Department estimates putting that number closer to or over 13%. Not only are more than 1/10 of American residents foreign-born, but more people are coming to the United States from regions of the world than ever before. And this is not only United States. There are some parts of the world that constantly have a surge of foreign people coming to live in their nations. Some people invite them, some don't, but they show up anyway, because this is the will of God for humanity. Botalova et al. Assert that more than 44.7 million immigrants lived in the United States in 2018, a historical numeric high since census recorded began. According to 2018 American Community Survey ACS data, 1 in 7 U.S. residents is foreign-born. Immigrants' current share of the overall U.S. population, 13.7% of the country's 327.2 million people. The geographical representation of the current location is slowly becoming a religious cultural community. The world's religion represented in community and workplaces include, but are not limited to, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Shinto, traditional Chinese, American Indian, Alaska Native, and Afro-Caribbean. The privilege to provide pastoral care ministry to people of different culture and religion using a wealth of educational experiences as a board-certified spiritual care giver chaplain is enormous. Also, relational interaction with patients and families often open doors for sharing helpful personal and religious information that could aid adequate spiritual and physical care. Sometimes, by asking questions like if the patients prefer for any ritual help, facilitate healing or comfort. The ability to get answer to the following questions through interaction with individual is imperative and aid healing or recovery. Number 1, what causes illness and the related ritual? Are there particular culturally religious prescribed types of dress for men and women? should prayer or ritual observance occur during the patient's admissions? Are the hygiene of washing required? Are there any dietary restrictions? Are there any unacceptable medication, treatment, or procedures? Are providers of the opposite sex acceptable? Can the patient donate organs or accept donors? Who is responsible for making informed decisions on behalf of the patient? What are the patient's religious views on the following: reproductive health and family planning, abortion, voluntary sterilization, contraceptives, rituals concerning pregnancy, birth, postpartum women, and women who have miscarriages? Are there important end-to-life rituals or beliefs? What should be done to the body after death? In my own case, I am from Nigeria, Africa. I'm from Africa and Nigeria. When parents lose their child, the women are not invited to the burial. The woman whose son or daughter deceased does not see the corpse. In United States, when the child passed, they are allowed to take pictures, moldings, several things for remembrance. So on occasions when I have the opportunity to speak for those foreign women and let people know that this is an abomination, it sounds strange. But to those people, this is not. It's their culture. This is their view. And some medication, some people don't eat something. Like the Muslims, they don't eat pork. And during their fasting, everything is respected. What about Hindus? What about other religion, cultural do's and don'ts? What about traditional Chinese? What is your culture? Buddhism, Hinduism, Christians, what is your culture? What is particular to you? To some, it might be strange, but this is the way of life, and this is why the worldview is so deep into culture. By walking to people, understanding them, and talking to them, you will then see how these cultural values are so important. And that is all they know and believe. My example is just a few. Now, going to the benefit of incorporating cultural competencies training in an organizational culture. Knowledge of concepts, definitions, principles, attributes enhances cultural competencies awareness. There are so many organizations that are going outside of United States or going into other world with their businesses. A very common example is Coca-Cola. When they go into Arab world, they are not showing their bottle like in the United States where you have the sun bath. Over there, they change the pattern of the system of doing commercials. So if companies want to make the same impact in other countries, it is very essential that all the staff and leaders be trained to be culturally competent. So I have just a few of the importance of being culturally competencies here. Number one, cultural shock. This is the disorientation experienced by discovering that all the cultural parents learn are now meaningless. Cultural shock experiences are not limited to any particular nation or environment, and it is not a reaction to poverty and a lack of sanitation. However, there is the stress over knowing less about living the host culture than the children, and the fear of starting again to learn the elementary things of life, how to speak, eat, market, travel, and more. When one realizes this is the new life in home, cultural shock sets in. Cultural shock experiences affect both short-term and long-term immigrants at different stages of their adaptation. The outcome of adaptive processes depends on the level of preparation. Hi, Bart. So for my example, when I was living in Germany, I have no idea, I have no clue of how to speak Dutch. And I have to take my dictionary to translate. When I got to United States, is another realm of life entirely. And I have to start learning like a little baby to pick up. And you will not believe, there was a time that was after 14 years before I went back to Nigeria. That was another cultural shock. Everything changed. The Naira notes changed. The currencies changed. The states I was knowing, like 16 to 12 to 16 states, had now doubled. So everything has changed entirely. I remember breaking down in the bank and crying. That was new. And I am a Nigerian. So when you see people from other nations, please be patient. Show compassion. Love them. You have no idea where you or your own relatives are going to be going tomorrow. Now we need, number 2 is cultural awareness. To examine an individual's cultural belief, values, and ethnocentric view through reflective, self-evaluative. Understand how culture shapes thinking, behavior, self-identity, and interaction. Respect for other culture and their worldview. Instill awareness of acknowledging that no culture is superior to another. Appreciate the importance of socio-political structures on minorities' experiences of oppressions and retaliations. This will be coming up in future. I will share my experiences of oppression and retaliation in workplaces, personal experiences. Number 3, cultural sensitivity. This is to demonstrate the ability to embrace cultural differences, including differences in individual and group behavior. Individualized intervention strategies with others with differing opinion. Examine how one's culture influences professional practices. Avoid language, actions, or attitude that denigrate other culture. Acknowledge that group member does not determine individual behavior. Next is cultural appropriateness. To ensure that services reflect local tradition and suit cultural context. Develop knowledge of particular issues relating to cultural differences. To acknowledge minorities' historical experiences of oppression. Utilize intervention strategies that recognize people's unique characteristics and needs. Next, cultural safety. to build working relationship in an environment where employees feel comfortable, treat people with dignity, and work from a position of respect, humility, and trust. Validate and include indigenous epistemologies in working relationships. Next, cultural competence. To empower staff members by engaging them as parents in services offered. Embrace the legitimacy of differences and diversity in human behavior and society. Develop awareness of one's cultural value, beliefs, and biases. Acquire sufficient knowledge of the normative behavior and belief of the cultural group in which people claim membership. Demonstrate ability to combine awareness and knowledge in professional practices. Acknowledge diversity and normative and differences as a resource, not problem to overcome. Acknowledge culture as being fluid and dynamic. See, when you see people of other culture, if you welcome them, it will be an addition, a beneficial addition to your organization. Because now they will be able to bring their own part, and when you invite them to the table where you all make decisions, their part will now influence your organization and improve them, where all you are planning to reach out and to grow will become easy. Because their idea is different from yours does not make them any better than yours or any less. Now we will look at cultural humility. Understanding self and others. Recognizing one's prejudices and cultural misrepresentations. This engaging continuous self-critique. Changing power differentiates in working relationship and organizations. Developing an attitude of not knowing and learning from your friends, co-workers, clients, and other people around you. In this episode, we wish to use this platform to define personal identity expressed in pastoral functioning and belief. A. Relationship with the Lord and others. B. History, socio-economic, and class structures. C. Cultural context and identity. The above lists combine affect how I see and relate with other people. Therefore, I strive to empathize, love, and care for the least of these. In my education and work experiences, I have come to realize the least of these are not limited to the poor. When you see millionaires and rich people who are on the bed very sick, and you cannot contact any family member who will come to visit them at this cruciate, the chaplain becomes the only family member that they are. They are included in the list of this at that moment when the money and wealth and fame fails. We all have a source of spirituality for helping. Spiritual is not limited to Christian faith. Spiritual is something that is paramount to you, that encourages you, that gives you hope outside of hope. When you are helpless, when there's nobody, there has to be something, higher power, whatever you call it, have it and let it be with you. Talk about it. Let it be your source of joy and comfort. If you don't know it, find it. Go and find it. By doing so, I hope that people may seek to know and desire God, through whom the gifts of the Spirit are attained. Galatians 5:22 through 23. A master through the Master of Divinity education with the chaplaincy concentration and a year-long resident in the clinical pastoral education, enhance my perception of myself as a pastor whose ultimate goal in life is to be the voice and representative for the voiceless, minority, and less privileged. For example, to create an awareness of the effect of individual biases and enrich understanding and realization of how people with traumatic experiences, grieving, and hopelessness situation are equally appreciative of ministry, of presence, of love, of kind, of empathy versus the ministry of doing. Finally, I desire to follow Paul's exemplary leadership style as he also imitated Christ Jesus. 1 Chronicle 11:1 and 4:16. I pray earnestly for the grace to make myself a servant to all, that I might win the more. To the weak I become as weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that I might save some. I do this for the gospel's sake. 1 Chronicle 9:19-23. Like Paul, it is my desire and prayer to never compromise the word of God. Remember, God works in different ways, but it is the same God who does the work in all of us. He decided to create diversity in humanity for his glory. Thank you. And if you have stayed with me for this long, I thank you. I ask that you like and subscribe and help share my ministry of courage. God bless you.